Hello and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to create this Elementor Countdown Timer using a free unlimited elements Elementor add-on. Amazing thing is that this WordPress Elementor Countdown Timer widget will work with both free and paid versions of the Elementor without any issue, as well as it is also highly responsive. You can use this countdown timer on any type of web page such as landing page, offer page, e-commerce product page, or as an event timer, etc. This countdown timer will not only give a professional look to your website but will also create a sense of urgency in the mind of your visitors, and hence it will ultimately convert your visitors to your potential customers. Furthermore, this free countdown timer widget is a reusable widget, which means that you can add and customize the same website countdown widget in more than one section with different settings. Now without any further ado, let's get started. In order to create this Elementor Countdown Timer clock, you will be required to install two plugins. The first one is Unlimited Elements, and the second one is Elementor. To install the required plugins, first, go to the WordPress dashboard. Then hover over the Plugins tab, and then click on Add New. Now just type Unlimited Elements in the plugins search field. Here you will get a small plugin with the same name by Unlimited Elements. Just install and activate this plugin. Similarly, install and activate the Elementor plugin too. To create the countdown timer, just scroll down to the bottom side of the WordPress dashboard. Then hover over the Unlimited Elements tab, and then click on the Widgets option. Now here by default, you will get dozens of free and pro widgets. You can install any widget as you like, but for now, we will be creating a new widget from scratch using the Widget Creator feature of this plugin. Now let's first create a new category for our widget. To do so, just click on this plus button, then type the category name, and then click on this button. To add a new profile card widget, just navigate to the newly created category, then click on the Add Widget button. Now here, just type the widget title, name, description, and then click on this button. Here you can see, our newly created widget has appeared, but currently, this card widget is not a functional widget because we have not added any code to this widget. In order to create the same type of WordPress Elementor Countdown Timer as shown in the video introduction, we will be requiring a code block of HTML as well as a few blocks of custom CSS and JS. By the way, if you don't know anything about the coding, then don't worry, you can download the required code after scanning this QR code or after directly visiting the link shown here, and then follow along with me. Now to edit the widget, just click on these three dots, and then click on the Edit in New tab option. Now here in the General tab, you can edit the widget title, name, description, icon, etc. Let me set an icon for our widget. To set an icon, just click on this button. Then search and insert a relevant icon for your widget. Now switch to the HTML tab. Then delete the default text from this field, and then paste copied Elementor Countdown Timer Widget HTML code from the downloaded file. Now switch to the CSS tab, and then paste the copied Elementor Countdown Timer CSS from the widget CSS file. Now switch to the JavaScript tab, and then paste the copied JavaScript code snippet from the widget JavaScript file. Now switch to the JS/CSS includes tab, and then check the jQuery option. In the end, just click on this button to update the changes. Now let's add this widget to our landing page hero section. Now let's add our newly created countdown timer widget just above this button. Now here our widget is looking perfect on all devices, but currently, you cannot change anything in this widget from here, because our widget doesn't have any setting options. In order to create dynamic setting options, we need to create an attribute for every single setting option. Now, what is an attribute? The attributes will make our widget flexible towards customization. In another word, you will get the settings to change the target date and time, color, widget size, etc. By the way, if you want to request to create a separate tutorial on this hero section creation process, then you can comment for the same down below. And until now, if I have received sufficient requests for creating the tutorial on this hero section, then you will find the video tutorial link in the description section. Now before proceeding further, I just want to tell you that it took us almost 30 hours to create this video for you. Please like and subscribe, it will take you only 2 seconds. To create the required attribute, just switch to the Attributes tab. Now here by default, you will get a settings section with the name of General. Just click on this pencil icon to rename the same. Now let's add a few more setting sections in our Countdown Timer widget. To add a new section, just click on this plus button. Then give the name. And then click on this button. Now let's create a few attributes for our setting section to understand the process of the attribute creation. In fact, let me create the target date and time input field, but before that let's see where and in what format our target date and time are required. Our target date code line must be written inside our JavaScript code snippet, so let's first switch to the JavaScript tab. Now here you can see, I have commented at several places so that anyone can understand this JavaScript code in a very easy manner. This comment is clearly saying that this line is for the target date code line. Here we need to input our month in 3-letter format with the first capitalized letter, day in this format, year in 4-digit format, and hour, minute, and second in this format. So we need to create the attribute in the same format. Now, let me switch to the Attribute tab for attribute creation. Now here select the relevant settings section. Then click on this button. Now just select the attribute type from this drop-down. For now, let's select the drop-down because we are going to create a dynamic setting for the day input drop-down. After that type the attribute title, name. Now here in the item text, you need to enter the same text whichever you want to show inside your drop-down option, and here in the item value, you need to assign a value to the item text. Here we need a drop-down option for days of the month, so we need to create 31 number options to choose from the drop-down because the maximum number of days in a month is 31. Let me very quickly add the remaining 30 days input drop-down options. Now here I have successfully added all the required fields for all 31 days. Here is one thing you need to understand, this radio button is for the default value of this drop-down setting. In another word, whenever you will insert this Elementor Countdown Timer widget, then day 1 of the months will be selected by default. Now, click on this button to save the attribute. Similarly, create the drop-down attribute of all remaining target date and time settings. Guys, if you considered purchasing a Pro version of the Elementor or Unlimited Elements plugins, then please consider purchasing via my affiliate links given in the description. In this way, you will help me to keep running this channel without costing you any additional money. Now we have created all the attributes for our target date and time input setting. In order to get the input date setting working, we need to add the all attribute shortcode to our JavaScript code snippet, so let me switch to the JavaScript tab. Once you will create an attribute, then the attribute shortcode of the same attribute will appear here automatically. To add the attribute shortcode, you just need to select the section of the code. Then click on the relevant attribute shortcode here on the right side. Similarly, add the remaining shortcode to the JavaScript date and time target line. Now we have successfully added all the required shortcodes for our countdown timer date and time input field. In the end, just save the changes. Now let's check if our newly created settings are working or not. To do so, let me switch to the same Elementor landing page where we have added our newly created countdown timer widget. Now let me refresh the page so that our recent version of the Elementor Countdown Timer will load on this page. Now here you can see, our countdown target date and time setting have appeared. Let me change the target date and time. Here you can see, our target date and time settings are working perfectly without any issue. Let's add more customization setting options for our countdown timer widget. To do so, let me go to the Attribute tab of the Widget Editor page. Now let's add the attribute for the countdown timer's main body customization attributes, such as widget alignment, container width, container height, and top and bottom padding. Here for the alignment, we will be using the drop-down type attribute, and for the rest of attributes, we will be using the number type attribute without any suffix. Let me add all 4 attributes very quickly so that you will not get bored. Now here, before we go with lightning speed, you need to understand that all 4 attributes of the main container need to have responsive setting options. To make any attribute responsive, we need to check this responsive control checkbox, and then enter default values for tablets and mobile devices. In the last, as usual, just click on this button to add the attribute. Now we have successfully added the attributes for the main container body. Let me add the attributes for the widget labels. Here we need to add the days, hours, minutes, and seconds as text field attributes, height, bottom position, gap, and font size as number attributes, and in the end, a color picker attribute for the label's font color. Now, let's add attributes for the counter number box. Here we need to add 5 different number type attributes with responsive control options. In the end, we need to create the attributes of the settings for the timer knob appearance. For the countdown timer knob, we need to add 4 different number type attributes with responsive control options. Now we have successfully created all the required attributes for our Elementor Countdown Timer widget. In order to make our settings work, we just need to add these attributes shortcodes inside our HTML and CSS code snippet. Now, to add attributes, let me first switch to the HTML tab. Now here we have 4 separate label text fields. To make these text fields editable directly from widget label settings, we have already created text field attributes for the same, so let's add those attributes shortcodes. Now switch to the CSS tab. Here let's add the relevant attribute shortcode at the relevant places. By the way, if you want to skip the attributes shortcodes addition step, then you can use the code snippet with attributes shortcodes included. I have given both versions of code snippets that are with and without the shortcode added. If you are going to use the code snippet with shortcodes included, then you just need to paste the HTML, CSS and JavaScript codes in their respective fields, then check the jQuery checkbox in the CSS/Js includes tab, and then create the attributes with exactly the same spelling as mine. If you change any attribute name spelling, then the setting associated with that particular attribute will not work, so be careful. To help you out here, I have created a PDF file for the attribute names and input values. Make sure to copy and paste the exact same value in the relevant field from the PDF file. Now we have successfully added all the required attributes shortcodes to our Elementor Countdown Timer Widget's code snippet. In the end, just save the changes. Now let's check if our newly created settings are working or not. To do so, let me switch to the same Elementor landing page where we have added our newly created Countdown Timer widget. Let me refresh the page so that our recent version of the Elementor Countdown Timer will load on this page. Now here you can see, our countdown timer settings have appeared, but here is something wrong with our countdown timer labels, so let me check why this weird thing is happening with our timer labels. I think we have done something wrong in our CSS code block related to labels, so let's see it in the CSS tab. Now here you can see, we have added the label height shortcode at the wrong place. The label width should be 100%, and the shortcode needs to add to the height property. Now let's see if the problem is resolved or not. Let me refresh the page once again. Here you can see, our widget settings are working perfectly without any issue. Now here one thing still remains to do, that is to make our widget a reusable widget. Currently, if we add our widget in more than one place, then it will not work correctly. In fact, let me show you this practically. Now here you can see, this widget is not working. Now, to solve this problem, we need to make our countdown timer widget a reusable widget. To do so, let's go to the widget HTML editor page. Now here we have added several static ID and a class. Currently, our widget is not working as a reusable widget because whenever we are adding this countdown timer widget at more than one place, then all countdown timer widgets copies are sharing the same ID and class, hence it is causing conflict with other copies of our countdown widget added on the same page. To solve this problem, we need to add a dynamic extension to our ID and class, so that whenever we add the copies of the widget, then dynamic ID and the class extension itself change with every new copy of the widget, and ultimately our problem will resolve. Now amazing thing is that the Unlimited Elements plugin has this default dynamic ID shortcode which we can use at any place, so let's add this dynamic ID shortcode just after every ID and class name. To add this dynamic ID, place the cursor just before the closing quotation mark of the ID or class, and then click here. Similarly, add this dynamic ID extension in all the IDs and classes. Similarly, we need to add this dynamic ID everywhere where we have added these IDs and classes, so let me switch to the CSS tab. Now here let's add the same dynamic ID, just after the class and ID name without any space. Now, we have added the dynamic ID at all the required places inside our widget CSS code. Let me switch to the JavaScript tab. Now here we have added the IDs at 4 places, so let me add the same dynamic ID extension here too. In the end, just save the changes. Now let me check if our widget's problem is resolved or not. Let's add our countdown timer widget at one more place. Let's align the widget on the left side and change the end time. Now here you can see our countdown timer widget is working perfectly as a reusable widget. Guys, I would like to remind you that it took me almost 30 hours to create this video for you. Please like and subscribe, it will take you only 2 seconds, and if you are facing any problem, then please let me know in the comment down below. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time.